Hi, LinkedIn. It's the 9th of September, and we haven't been live for a while, but now we're kicking it off again. And I'm Rodrigo, CEO, co-founder of MyTelescope. And with me today, I have Anil, that I've met, I think it was a couple of months ago, and started
Indeed.
talking about how to use data for celebrity endorsement and understanding the movements and trends of the market. But I felt that Anil had so much more to talk about, not only about celebrity endorsement. So I really wanted to have a chat with him, and I thought it could be interesting for you guys to hear him as well. He has a vast background, but I'll let him introduce himself before we take it forward.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, Rodrigo, it's great to be here and have this opportunity. So thank you. So who am I? Well, I'm a father to be, so I'm quite excited to share that.
Oh,
I'm
congrats.
a, Thank you so much. February next year.
Oh, wow.
It's coming up. I'm a happy husband. I work for Nike, as mentioned. I'm a triathlete, so I'm a business leader. Love sport, and originally from the U.S. My roots are from India. At the same time, I've been living overseas for nearly 18 years now, so a global citizen. And I'm a sponge, man. I love to learn. I love to look after my health, and I love to build relationships. So, speaking with you today and the conversations we started having on MyTelescope, excited to hear what you have in mind, and hopefully we can share some unique insights for your audience.
Cool. Thank you so much. And one of my first question is, triathlete, I kind of understand why you work at where you're working with Nike, but kind of what has been your career path and why did you end up working more, with connecting stars with brands, so to speak?
Sure. So I'll work backwards. The funny thing is, I actually came into this role and didn't expect what it entailed. So, to kind of clarify to your question, I look after the athlete partnerships we have for our global football players on the men's side here in Europe. So that's Kylian Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo, Erling Haaland, Marcus Rashford, and we've obviously started doing some amazing work with Vinicius Jr. And so the role I do and the work I do is, how do we bridge brand and business and work in partnership with the athletes team to make sure that we're creating a legacy for that athlete. We're elevating them to being icons. We're elevating them beyond sport, beyond culture, beyond community, and we're finding ways to really work closer and stronger. And honestly, it was something that I've had to craft over the last 3.5, 4 years since I've been not only in the role, but over the last 5 years since I've actually come into football. And that's, prior to that, I worked in multi-brand retail, elevating retail spaces, digital, physical. Prior to that, I worked at Adidas, and I worked in the lifestyle side, again, a new retail concept, bringing it into Germany. And prior to that, my MBA, and before that, I was a consultant in IBM doing telecom. So a bit of formerly a jack of all trades, but really now investing in partnerships and how do you commercialize partnerships? But you do that by building an amazing brand, a sustainable partnership that can yield business results. So that's kind of my background and kind of how I came into this space. And to be fair, I've been learning something new every day, whether it be something on the data side or on the art side, the science side. Go ahead.
And how did you, when it comes to, like, I was listening in yesterday to a radio show about the fashion industry, that before building a brand, due to the fact that you had so many newspapers and fashion newspapers and stuff, you kind of, the big part was like to do press releases and get these journalists to pick up your story and then write about it. And then it has moved to much more like the influencers, and now it's not even the big influencers, it's more like the micro influencers. And how is it, how do you think about the whole story about, because now a lot of the stars that you've just mentioned are like big celebrities, but where does it start, and how do you view the point of view, and like when you're looking for a potential star or when you're looking for a potential partnership, what is it that you have to bear in mind to kind of think about who's good to work with, so that is actually a good fit to a brand that you might be representing?
Yeah, sure. I think you raise an interesting point, and I love it, because I think there's the influencer side or the micro influencer.
We're having a bit of technical issues here, it seems like, with the internet. We'll see.
Sorry,
Neil, I think you're back now. You lost internet.
Sorry about that. I hope that if that's on my side, I apologize. So
I
where
have
I
no
was,
idea.
okay, no worries. Where I was, you have the influencers, micro influencers, and then you have celebrities, right? Celebrities, they could be athletes, they could be artists. What I would find is an influencer is really there to be a maven of the brand. They're really trying to promote, make you aware. So whether you're someone who's a heavy user or more likely a light user, I think those influencers are really beneficial to brands to help light users become more aware of the brand. And as soon as light users are aware of the brand, they'll start to use it, try it out, almost like light word of mouth. And I think that comes far more from light users than from heavy users. I think when you look at a celebrity, whether it be, and again, an athlete, an actor, an actress, an artist, they are almost, they're connecting with the brand because it's authentic for them, preferably. I've heard of partnerships where it's just a pure financial investment for an artist, whether it be 50 Cent into vitamin water, or whether it be someone like Rihanna into Puma, right? Or even Zendaya in On. I think what those artists, what those actors, actresses are trying to do is they feel like there's a resonance with what they believe in, what they stand for, and therefore they really want to embody that brand. So it's not just a logo. It's actually, hey, a brand wants to deliver a feeling, a sentiment, a communication. And I think those celebrities will bring the brand to life. Whereas I think you're looking at influencers are really driving awareness of a brand logo or of a product. So I think it's unique when you're trying to decide as a brand, do you really want someone to make you word of mouth through light users, or do you want someone who's a partner who embodies, who connects with, who's authentic about your brand and can then really build on their platform visibility and awareness of your brand?
Cool. No, because I think it feels like, the whole way of building with celebrity endorsement and partnership is something that's been done, I think, forever. I mean, you have examples from everything from Marilyn Monroe to, Michael Jordan. And I mean, you have so many vast histories of celebrities during all times that brands have either dressed them or, you try to get them to show something in a movie. Or how do you kind of think about the risks involved in, because because you're connecting to a person, so in that sense you can't, I mean, you want to be in the positive side of it, but how do you think about it when it's a person that it's a star, a celebrity, or might be becoming one? How do you think about it, so that, because there's always, as you say, the personal side of it.
I love that. I think what's interesting about working with, so having my background in mono-brand retail, multi-brand retail, and now working with athletes or individuals. Individuals aren't entities, right? Foot Locker, JD Sport, Nike, those are entities, right? These humans are individuals, and they bring their life into their work. That's part of the reason why a brand is willing to work with them. And that's a risk. I mean, we see what happened between Adidas and Kanye, right? He goes south, that brand partnership goes south, that brand goes south. When you think about the risks, I think it's something you're looking to factor in, but no one can see into the future where an individual is going to be. Are they going to go through a bad breakup? Are they going to actually aspire and go further, farther, faster as you partner with them and work with them? Nobody knows. So I think a lot of these partnerships and relationships are built partly short term. You might see a contract between a celebrity and a brand, maybe be like, let's say, a 3-year collaboration, right? And it's going to have, moments where it's product related, it's brand related, but then they're trying to manage it, versus others that are maybe 5, 10, 15 years. And there's a long-term collaboration. And hey, it's like a marriage, right? You don't know when you go into it if it's going to be successful or not. You're hoping for the best. And I think that's why I go back to partnership, right? If it's a transactional relationship, I think it's probably going to lead towards a separation or divorce, or they're going to cheat on you and going to go work with another brand, right? If it's something where it's a true partnership, then I think the risks, you'll manage the risks together. I mean, you can see athletes in Nike's portfolio where, Tiger Woods is a great example. Phil Knight says in his book, if anyone walks into the room and says anything negative about Tiger Woods, I'll leave the room right there and then. So you're going to have different relationships between a celebrity that you partner with and how far that relationship goes, and the purpose of it, the authenticity of it, versus it's just an endorsement. It's just here, here today, potentially gone tomorrow, and we're okay with that.
I mean, when I've heard your intro, kind of your vast background, you've been everything from IBM consultant, telecoms, to now working more into partnerships. What's kind of the red thread you have seen, and also what is that made you say, okay, now I really want to focus on this part of building partnerships?
Yeah. So I have 3 values that I can share kind of broadly: health, relationships, and learning. And if I say the relationships piece is incredibly important to me, and that's probably been that thread. So being a consultant, it's all about relationship building, expectation management, relationship management, people management. You listen, you identify a problem, and then you're partnering to solve it. And if it's not being solved, you're continuously working to find the right solution, even as other problems pop up. I think that's been what I feel today has allowed me to be both successful in this space, is really valuing those relationships. And it's allowed me to understand different types of relationships in the space as well. Again, I go back to the word, there are those transactional relationships where, it's a cash and carry, or there's another type of relationship on the other end of the spectrum, which is I want to cultivate and nurture this and see where it can go. And I think with athletes that we work with, that I've worked with, you're treating them as you would, I'm going to say this kindly, a nurse or a janitor or someone that's maybe not as high on the totem pole, because everyone as a human is equal, right? And so I think that's what allowed me to be successful in this space is I want to listen, I want to learn, I want to understand, and then I want to not solve or scratch my itch or the brand's itch. I actually want to find a solution that serves the athlete, that serves the partner. Because I think if you do that, that mutual respect, that trust will build. And as you build that trust, you're able to accomplish and do far more and weather those risks, those storms, whenever those lows are low, and then you can celebrate when those highs are high.
And where do you think, I mean, because if you're looking at, as you were saying, I think a lot of the sponsorships has been before maybe that you dressed someone, and now you're seeing it more. I mean, partnerships. That's kind of how this type of, how do you say, category has evolved. How do you see how do you envision a future like that? How brands will work together with these stars? Because you're seeing more and more, putting up their own clothing lines. You're seeing more and more. They are becoming, brands on their own under an umbrella of others. And I mean, that's not only it's happening across most kind of sports brands, but it's supposed it's happening as well under other fashion brands as well. Will it become more that these start? I mean, if you saw Zlatan here in Sweden, he started his own brand under someone else, and then of course nobody wanted to maybe fund it all the way. I don't know, but it didn't go all the way maybe as they dreamt of. But where is it heading? Because I mean, if you've seen some of those, it didn't work all the way. Whilst the ones that I've seen so far that are kind of very successful is when there's a strong collaboration with the experts. I mean, the companies together with the brand or the personal brands or sports people.
Yeah, no, great question. I think in the last 25 to 30 years, we've seen an acceleration in how a celebrity will see themselves as a brand versus as a billboard. And I say that kindly because we know that in the last 15 years, social media has just exploded, and it's only getting further and farther as we go ahead, right? And so I think, you have a brand that's so used to being front and center, and now it's having to kind of share the stage, right? And I think that's where the future I see, to kind of answer your question more directly, is I do see that there will be a slice of celebrities that are able to create their own brands. Now, whether it's like they are the headliner and then they've got a portfolio of brands underneath them, I think that's going to be true for maybe 5, maybe 10% of celebrities. I don't think all celebrities can achieve that iconic status. I see CR7 kind of on track for that, right? I think you look at what Kim Kardashian has achieved, right, with Emma Grady and her team, right? You take an idea and you launch it, and then you basically try to calibrate that and take that further. So I think you're going to see a smaller percentage of successful celebrities create their own brands, and then a portfolio of brands underneath them, whether they're collaborations with big brands or not. I think for the other 90%, I think they're happy to be partners and they're happy to be sponsored. They're happy to continue to work with the brand in a way the brand needs them. So if a brand has a strategy and they want to accelerate that strategy, they will go, all right, who's the right person that I can bring in that can help accelerate that strategy, that links to our values, that links to our product, that links to our consumer. And I think that's the key. Let me underline both groups. The consumer, because ultimately you're doing this to have a conversation with the consumer, and that consumer may be the one that you already speak to as a brand, or a consumer base that your partner, that celebrity, can access. So ultimately you're trying to reach people. And so I do feel the future is a small subset, almost like a pyramid, who really build their own brand and have a portfolio of brands underneath them, or the balance that have just partnerships with brands and are able to do it for a couple of years, depending where they are in their career, who they are resonating with, and what consumer they're able to help that brand speak to.
Most of the stories you read about, celebrities and brands, is a lot, as I said, a lot of it is in fashion or sports, or maybe, of course, like, how you say, consumer product like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, etc. But have you seen kind of B2B brands that have seen, wow, they've done a fantastic celebrity, sponsorship where they have worked together? Because, and to put my question into context, if you think about now, for example, OpenAI, it's more, Sam Altman, you think about OpenAI. And of course, he's the CEO, so in that sense, it becomes unnatural. He's become a celebrity just because of that. But could you do the same thinking of, like, in a B2B brand, and who would that type of person be that you would work together with, as to say, if you want to make a celebrity endorsement for Microsoft Excel?
That's so here's an interesting thing here. I think the reason why I can't think off the top of my mind of even a past B2B success with, let's say, celebrities, because I think B2B is highly lucrative within that group, right? If you're selling to someone B2B, they've got the cash, they've got the problem, you're able to solve it, you're able to go in with it. I think that's why B2C harnesses celebrities far more, because you're really trying to reach, like I said earlier, a consumer base, light users or heavy users of a product or of a product category. If I had to think about it, I think, I wouldn't actually be surprised if in the future, yes, maybe brands do use AI to create personalities, artificial personalities, to help businesses relate to each other. So for example, let's say Microsoft says to a sport brand, hey, I'm the spreadsheet. I've been around since the beginning and I'm constantly training to get better. That's what you want from a product, just like you want that from your athlete, your consumers for your product. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. The other thing I will say is back to athletes. You will see B2B partners leveraging athletes, because we're all professional athletes. So if you want to sell a product or a service into a business, you might say, hey, look at this athlete who's using my product and they're successful with it. So, you can be as successful by following what this athlete is doing and using the product as well. So I do believe there are opportunities, whether it's an AI personality, an avatar that's actually being used to sell in a B2B initiative, or if you're able to use someone who's like, hey, look, not only are they an athlete, they're also a user of this product, and by using it, we feel that your business can benefit from it as well. There's one that I'm using right now called Hoogly, and Hoogly, I wouldn't be surprised in the future if they say, you know what, athletes who work remotely or train remotely, they don't really have that contact that, let's say, professionals do in an office. And so this is a platform that they use in order for them to keep in touch with others who are kind of going through their challenges. So I can see, yes, I do see a potential. And I see that, like you said, as an opportunity that maybe we can tap into as we look ahead. And how do B2B leverage these kind of, let's say, celebrities or personalities to really harness and kind of articulate the value of their product, the benefits and the features of their product, and how it serves them, and therefore how it can serve a business.
Yeah, exactly. If you think of it, in the end, the business buyer is a human person as well. So I suppose that, you also want to have the chance of, I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that in the good old days when MTV was a place that everybody wanted to, be with, they had this big boat in Cannes where they had celebrities partying there. So every advertiser that advertised on TV would be invited to this party. And I think that's kind of not the same thing as sponsoring, but what I mean is, in the end, it was, human people wanting to be able to say that I had a chance to hang out with these celebrities. So I think it's strange that nobody has really taken it, because I know they sponsor golf and they do, they do a lot of sponsoring, but I haven't seen that.
I mean,
those collabs.
I go back to, and this is digressing slightly, but it's like you see it in politics, right? When you have a donor base and a party coming together to raise funds, right? And they leverage a celebrity, or they're a guest star, guest speaker. So I think it is absolutely possible. I think that it's almost like but it's got to be authentic, right? I think I go back to that whole thing and it's got to be deliberate. Like if you're going to do something with a celebrity, if it's deliberate, I feel like you've got more success, because consumers are so smart these days. Whether you're a business, a B2C or a B2B, if someone's trying to like run a fast one past you just to get a sale, they'll know. And I think that's where I think the tipping point between a successful partnership or a risky partnership will come out of, is there really an authentic connection, why that person's there? And if they're just there to show face, not going to be a successful partnership. So I think you bring up a great point. And I think that's something that maybe the listeners can think about, is like, hey, if I'm in a B2B situation, I want to leverage this platform, celebrity, athlete, actor, actress, artist, how can it serve and actually be authentic versus, no, this isn't something I should go down. I should just stick to what I know and sell a product for how it is, or a brand for what it is or what it means.
No, but that's a great advice, because I think a lot of people have probably, as I said, they've probably done sponsorships and, they've been able to, they bring in a celebrity for a specific event, but I haven't seen that many to think about as a long-term tactic, so to speak. Another question on that, on being successful, and which is kind of close, of course, to my heart, but how do you measure, how successful you have been in working together with a star, or with because I mean, of course, as we talked about before with Kanye and Adidas, you could see how much they were selling over time, but that's something that happened after a while. How do you before you get there, because you're probably sponsoring not only, I mean, these are the big ones that we hear of, but there's probably a lot of more unknown so-called sports people that are being sponsored that will be the future, maybe.
Yeah, I again, it's the quote unquote million, billion, right, $1 trillion question, because that's where you want to unlock value, right? Is how can data serve a purpose to help you know that this is a partnership worth having? It'll yield and unlock value rather than just be you're throwing away cash, right? A lot of thoughts here. Let me try to keep them specific, and we can dig as you'd like. The first is clearly sell through. So I think that you will, as a brand, as soon as you partner with someone and you bring a product together to market, you're immediately looking at your sell through. If it didn't sell, clearly that partnership didn't resonate. If it did sell, okay, there's opportunity. How big was that sell through? You only know based on how much you put into the market. I think the second piece on the back of that then is, how driven by sell through are you going to be? Are you trying to build a sustainable partnership, or is this a partnership where it's transactional, right? If it's a sustainable partnership, then you're cultivating the partnership and you're trying to think about, it's not just moment to moment, launch to launch, it's actually in between. How are you showing the consumer that there's probably something happening, a conversation, a story that's happening between the brand and that partner, that celebrity? I think the third one that comes to mind is, as you can see, searches and chatter, right? So what you do at MyTelescope in terms of how frequently are people typing into search bars like, hey, Nike and, Killian, or Adidas and Bellingham, or, On and artists, right? So I think there's, I was actually forgetting her name for a second there. It'll come back to me. Zendaya, there we go, Zendaya, right? So I think that there are ways where you can search and you can understand, like, okay, if there's certain searches, then maybe that means something, that people are looking for that relationship. It's not just I'm driven by the brand and I'm driven by, or the celebrity, it's by the combination of the two. And then I think that social chatter that you see, so I think a lot of people will go to Instagram or to TikTok or to YouTube, and how many views or how many likes or how many comments. I do that daily. Like, one of my athletes' posts, I'm like, wait, was it like, dislike? What were the comments? Are they positive? Are they negative? Was it engaged? That to me is super important. That said, I do feel that there's a risk that we run in trying to leverage these data points as a means to understand, is this a successful partnership or not? So I think that's something where, again, people have to go, what are those correct metrics and how are we looking at them develop over time rather than, yes, we had a 15 million view or, a million likes. And as a percent of followers, that's 10% and 10% is above the benchmark and we're winning. It's like, okay, that's great, but is that success for you? Is that what you set out to achieve or did you exceed? Does that mean you left something on the table? Can you go further? So I think those data points are important. The last thing I'll mention is,
just to jump in there, just a question, because we're talking about how much, for example, let's say engagement you got.
Yeah.
Let's say there is someone that don't get engagement at all because that's not what they get engagement for, but at the end you're seeing that you're getting the sell through anyway. Will it always triumph? Sell through always wins, or how do you know what I mean? Or will that no, but that wasn't because of that celebrity endorsement. That was because we had great distribution channels, or
Yeah, it's a great shout. I think so. This is actually, you lead me into that last point I was going to make, which is it direct revenue or indirect revenue that you're trying to measure, right? So the direct revenue is obviously anything that was sell through on the back of this partnership versus the halo that you generated by having this partnership. What attention did it bring to other products and services that you offer? And so I think exactly to your point, ideally you're seeing an overall lift in addition to the lift that you see in that specific partnership. Because I think what sometimes we fail to realize is, it's very simple, right? You've got mental availability of a brand and you've got physical availability, right? So you can create mental availability with the partnership, but then if it's not physically available, like we've seen, it can happen, right? Especially in high heat sneakers or in high heat products, right? Anything that has a high demand and a low supply, you'll immediately see that you'll upset customers and they'll be like, or you'll make them want it more. You look at Prime Drink is a great example of absolutely overhyped partnership and where it is today, right? In my opinion, it started off strong, but then again, what kind of partnership that was, you can judge. Was it transactional or was it sustainable? And I think that's where you start to see the longevity and the value of a partnership, that you see you're unlocking value over time rather than just trying to have that one hit wonder like a song and then you never heard from again, or that subsequent release you have doesn't fire as big or as far as you would expect. So you're absolutely right in what you say. I think you need to be very careful, but again, you need to know what you're setting up for success. Like, what does success look like? What am I trying to achieve? And if that's what I'm trying to achieve, these are simply metrics and measurements to tell me how well I did, because I can always learn and do better. But at least having a data point is always useful, because it's not just, how do I feel it when there's, you're backing up feel with the science.
How early normally, when you were at Adidas or other places, how early on do you decide when developing a product that this one we should be working together with a celebrity on this one, or a superstar, or no, this one works, we can actually do it on our own and we don't need that endorsement, so to speak?
Yeah. Wow. Great question. So it depends. I think, let me again oversimplify it. There's either your product that you're creating at inception where that partnership is in mind, and you're doing that because you want to leverage the heat of both, because together the combination of both is a multiplier and it's going to grow, right? So you're doing it from the start. That's the ideal scenario. Not always are you in that luxurious position, because sometimes agreeing with an athlete or an artist or a celebrity might take longer, and you might already have a product and you're like, hey, we've got this product coming. How do we now create a campaign around it with the right partner, the right celebrity, the right athlete, the right artist to do something with them, and you already know what you're going to do with it. And I've been involved in both, and I would say to you, the most successful is ideally the former, where you're starting from inception, you're bringing it through, but you can be equally as successful in the latter, where you're just making sure that, again, you're creating an authentic connection with that partner, and you're making sure that there's something about that product or that service that resonates for them, that when they speak about it, there's something special. Because I go back to the consumer. Ultimately, you're doing this to reach consumers or a business to buy into your product or your service. They can sense bullshit, right? So if they go, oh, come on, you just did that because you just want the two to come together and that's what's going to create success. they will see through that, and you won't be as successful as you want to be. But if they see the story and the journey that's happened, which is something that more and more consumers are asking for, is give us the behind the scenes footage, so we don't just think this is something that it just came out of thin air and you guys think that it will work. There's more to it. There's more heritage. There's more of a story to it. And we as humans love stories, and we love how a story comes together. So I would say to you, both are possible. I've seen both. And I think it's just a matter of, again, what are you trying to achieve? And as long as that process, that approach yields that result, I think, magic happens. And I think we've seen equally similar launches where it hasn't come to life in a successful way. I really do think what Zendaya and On have done with even the recent clip with her and Federer playing air tennis is quite unique. It's quite cool. So that's the other thing is, are you doing what others have done, or are you actually trying to do something kind of different? So I think that can also play into it, because again, we as humans love habit, but sometimes we like it when it's disruptive. We like it when it's deliberate, but it's a bit like, ooh, unexpected. So I think that's also super important, is how you find the right partnership, whether it be at the start, the middle, or at the end, to bring that product or service to life.
And another question I have for you then, like you have been working globally, both in the US, now in Europe. You said you had roots in India. How do you see that there's kind of different trends how we work, with celebrities and partners around the world? I mean, or do you sense that kind of Europe, this is the way we do it, and then you have in the US, it's totally different, versus Latin America, it's the third alternative?
Yeah, I love that. The short answer is, I'm starting to appreciate global local more. I think there are partnerships that we see that are globally relevant, that can transcend gender, it can transcend race, it can transcend religion, language, and you see successful partnerships like that. I'm going to use India as an example. I think India is its own microcosm. I mean, you have over 1.5 billion people. You have Bollywood, you have cricket, you have business, you have the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor and everything in between. And I do feel that, they've found a way to make local powerful. That to me, whenever I go back to India and I see local brands thrive, it continues to amaze me, because you'd expect, no, literally 3 decades ago, everyone wanted foreign brands. Everyone like myself would pack our suitcases with foreign brands and bring it in. Now, those foreign brands are present. Those foreign brands are actually supported by local actors, actresses, athletes, celebrities of all sorts, whether they be a businessman or a businesswoman. And I think that, Indians, they have this, they glorify it. So I think there's what I'm starting to see is more local relevance of partnerships rather than global. And I think that's something, to me, that we may see again more of, especially in countries where, it's nice to have the foreigner come in and actually, be a spokesperson or an ambassador or a partner in a product service collaboration. But I think India has found its own footing, and I think over the next 2 to 3 decades, I actually am curious to see how there's a reverse. So they're actually bringing Indian celebrities into into Europe and into the US, into China, into Asia, into South America, to really promote Indian brands and even foreign brands. So I think we're going to see a shift. I anticipate that, and I think we're already seeing it. I mean, you look at the Ambani wedding, it was the most talked about wedding in the history of anyone and everyone, right? And they're highlighting the purchases of both domestic brands, but mostly foreign brands. And I think more people know about these foreign brands because of, how the Ambanis treated them as gifts, or as what they used or whatnot. So I'm actually quite excited. I'm quite blessed to have that multi, background. But I have to say, it sometimes blows my mind what India is capable of doing, what countries are able to do at a local level, and how it'll go from local to global rather than from global to local.
It's also interesting that you bring up India. We're seeing more and more, most of our use cases in MyTelescope, but also, more and more companies, of course, consumer brands going to India as untapped market that has a huge potential to grow. Have you been working anything in India, or has you more seen it as, as a with family from India, or have you been working in India as well?
So sorry, you were kind of cutting out. So is your question, have I seen
No, so
or
have you been
experienced?
working? Have you been on your own? Have you been driving, for example, working in India, bringing a brand to India, or have you, or now that you're as an observer because a lot of focus is on India?
Yeah. So there are a few brands that I've spoken to in the last few years of how do they want to go into India, and the short answer is absolutely yes. Now, I think let me use Nike as an example. I think Nike has a massive opportunity in India. I think it's untapped. I think the money's there. People are currently leaving India to buy Nike product. So Nike has a huge opportunity, even though it's like a predominantly cricket dominated market, where the other brand Adidas rules that. You see Puma, who's now like three of their MD, CFO, and CMO have left and started their own company. So I actually see the possibility, yes, of bringing other brands into India. It's difficult though, because India is a market where if you don't know the right people or person, you're not going to succeed. And those guys, they already have the network, they already have the supply chain, they already have the logistics, they already have the relationships, they have the money to bring those brands in and actually kind of do it themselves. So versus like if you want to bring something to market in Europe or in the US, I think it's far easier as a non-local. So would I love to do it? Absolutely. Do I see challenges with it? Yes, because I think the Indian marketplace, unless you're ready to really, put your gloves on and go in, you'll either get, beated up by someone who has close relationships, who's got more money or more clout. So that's an interesting one. I'd actually love to come back to you on that. But yes, I do feel there's an opportunity, but it's tough. It's not going to be as easy as the other marketplaces, at least in the current environment. They may make it easier as time goes on, but let's see.
Cool. Thanks, Anil. And just a final question before I let you go. And I think you put yourself in the spot by telling us that you're becoming a dad. So
Love
now, now as a final kind of question, what would be your wish for your future kid? Which book should he or she read to have a good start in life?
Ooh. So I'm going to say I want my son or daughter, depending which it is, to number one, believe in themselves. Self-belief, I do feel, is something that we start out with, and it's attacked daily as we get older. We second guess, we seek external validation, we seek external comparison, or we become overachievers because we feel like good isn't enough or great isn't enough. One book that I would love for my kids to read, but they may not read it until they're probably in their 30s, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I just feel it's a powerful book. There's a book I just finished reading called Relentless by Tim Grover. And I have a nephew who's 14 years old. He's an avid tennis player, and I've recommended it to him. And the reason why is it's a mindset. And I think that, again, we can physically develop ourselves, train ourselves, but when it comes to the mindset, I think we need to learn how to really make sure that we've got the right headspace going into things. So yeah, I would say Relentless, just top of mind, because I just finished it and I think it was great. And then maybe another book I would recommend, a few people are familiar with it, is Grit by I think it's Amanda Duckworth. And that book, sorry, Angela, I think it was Angela or Amanda Duckworth. But the reason why that book is because it gives examples of others, athletes, coaches, businesswomen, sports, who, they compete, but they compete by doing all the hard work at practice. So when they actually are competing in those split seconds, that training comes through. And so, yeah, I think those are a few books that I'd love for my kid to read in the right stage of their life when they're ready, because I do feel it'll strengthen their soul, and it'll hopefully bring harmony to their mind and their body alongside it. So yeah, appreciate you asking that question. It's a beautiful question. I'm gonna have to think more on that one too. People might just think, well, dude, it should just be like, a lullaby story or a lullaby book, or like
Yeah.
Little Engine That. Maybe we'll start with Little Engine That Could. How about that? Little Engine That Could. Sorry, listeners. We're gonna just Little Engine That Could, and then we'll build our way to tougher books with different perspectives. Yeah.
Well, you never know. My grandma used to sing Uruguay's national anthem for me to be able to sleep, because she thought she'd had such a good revolutionary song to it. So
I don't
so
know.
you never know.
My wife's Aussie, so it would be like, wait, is it the U.S. anthem? Is it the Aussie anthem? So that might become challenging too. Let's see which one the kid cheers to when we start singing.
How do you make them global, right?
There's a book actually I gave to a friend of mine's son, and my buddy won't let me hear the end of it. But it's the name of the book is the sounds that come out of your bum. And it's his favorite book, so I wouldn't be surprised if I got something like that in return. Yeah, exactly, because kids need to know that stuff, right? So
yeah. Of course. Why hide it?
Exactly.
Neil, thank you so much for these 40 minutes. Really appreciate it. And none of these questions were pre-prepared, so I really appreciate how quick you were in being able to give us some good answers and a good chat here. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you later on the different channels.
Rodrigo, thank you as well for amazing questions, your time, your listeners' support. This was amazing, and look forward to future conversations, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.